Previously on Power Reviews.
Borrowed my camera.
It was stolen. If there's anything I can do to make it up to you, you make sure to let me know.
I still can't believe you told him he could live here. A lockbox along with a folio for a thorough background check.
Did you run a check on me too?
No legal record whatsoever that anyone named Database Ranger has ever existed. Maybe you should worry a little bit less about whether or not I'm real and a little bit more about yourself.
Kay! No, I do not need a co-host. Besides, I'm out of Megaforce episodes.
Why don't you go back and look at some episodes that you actually enjoy? And I'm sure you and Guy would do great together.
What? And now, Database Rangers Power Review. Greetings, Ranger fans.
Is that my camera?
And welcome to Power Reviews.
That looks like my camera.
What I mean is, after the incident with the ninjas, I decided to get a new one, and I like the bread so much, so, as you can see, we have a new co-host joining us today. Why don't you introduce yourself, Guy?
Because I don't want to.
Alright then. So to go along with our new co-host, we're also changing up our MO a little bit. As many of you may know, Power Rangers Megaforce recently went on an unexpected hiatus. Announced 3 weeks after the airing of their last episode, Prince Takes Night. So instead of sitting around waiting for new episodes to come along, I decided to take a little walk down memory lane and review some classic episodes from PR's original run of 700. And considering all the controversy surrounding Jonathan Zakor's current run with the show, I thought it might be appropriate to take a look at the season that kicked off the run of another very controversial producer, Bruce Kalish. Guy, would you care to elaborate?
Do I have to?
Please?
Fine. Power Rangers SPD originally aired in 2005 as the 13th season of Power Rangers, adapting the 28th installment of Super Sentai Tokusou Sentai Dekarenja. It's centered around an organization dedicated to protecting the Earth from extraterrestrial threats and alien criminal activity in the year 2025. Although the series begins with the destruction of Merlandia, the story actually commences years earlier with Emperor Grum's attack on the planet Sirius. You have well over 100 cards here.
Is that a problem?
I'm done with these. It was a show, Disney made it. Some guy named Kalish produced it. Can we move on?
Yeah, sure, sorry. The episode that we're looking at today is one I selected specifically for you. What with your career in... and your interests in... I just thought you might like it. So let's dive right in with episode 9 of Power Rangers SPD. We're supposed to say it together here.
Really?
Yeah, it'll be fun. Come on. 1, 2, 3. No, you didn't do it.
This is stupid.
Come on, it's part of the stick.
We're not moving on until we do this, are we?
Nope.
Fine. This is episode 9 of Power Rangers SPD.
Idol. We kick things off with our opening credits, easily one of the least controversial parts of the season, as they feature the return of Ron Wasserman, known for being the creator of the original Mighty Morphin theme, and that guy that Saban keeps forgetting to rehire. Here we are introduced to our dramatis personae, rebel-turned-leader Red Ranger Jack, brooding by the book Blue Ranger Sky, goofy but intuitive Green Ranger Bridge, your sassy Yellow Ranger Z, and preppy Pink Ranger Sid. They're joined by their nemesis Grum and mentor Doggy, helpers Cat and Boom, and lastly Mora and Piggy, who aren't actually in this episode.
But I'm sure that information was still vital, as were all of those explosions.
Yeah, that's one of the more controversial things. But for now, let's not worry about it and dive right into the episode proper.
The story begins with the Rangers all sitting around their command center being bored. This is riveting.
Tell me about it. Kruger goes off for 2 days to an important galaxy meeting, leaving me in charge, and nothing.
Maybe this episode should have been focused around that meeting then.
Their malaise is soon broken, though, when Bridge identifies a UFO.
Isn't that an oxymoron?
Regardless, it's on a crash course with the center of town, which means that it's time to go to work.
Last I checked, most jobs don't involve riding down tube slides going woohoo.
That would be pretty fun though, wouldn't it?
You've got me there.
They race to the scene in their Delta Runners, but are too late to stop the crash, and form the Delta Squad Megazord to put out the fires with their water cannon.
I imagine they must use that a lot with all the fiery explosions in their line of work.
Not as much as you would think. They discover a survivor among the wreckage.
No.
No.
Did you see how many pieces that ship was in? And on fire? Obviously, this person was a sewer worker underneath the site of that crash, since several tons of concrete protection is the only way that someone walks away from a disaster like that with zero damage to their clothing.
Fair point. Either way, the Rangers investigate, as both the ship and the sewer worker have the SPD logo plastered all over them.
The sewer worker apparently takes credit for the crash, claiming to have lost control of the ship while following an alien criminal.
He removes his helmet to catch his breath, and suddenly the plot thickens.
Drew? Sky? Oh, man.
That is not a regulation handshake.
Yeah, we'll get to those in a moment, right after Sky and Drew explain that they were best friends at the academy.
These are Tangarian coils. On my home planet of Tangar, it's tradition to share a coil with your closest friend, to always feel that connection no matter where you are in the galaxy.
They're bracelets.
Well, I guess you don't have a best friend.
Or, he's not from Tangar.
Also, he does have a best friend. It's Z. You know, the one smirking it up with Sid? She and Jack are practically adopted siblings.
I can see that this conversation is deteriorating.
Oh, thanks, Sky. Let's get back on topic. Sky and Drew join Jack down the shooting range, where Jack gets a perfect score of 3 out of 3, only for Drew to one-up him by nailing all 3 moving targets in one shot.
Meh, I've seen better. Later that night, Jack is distracted from his work by some kind of rudimentary shadow puppet.
Actually, that won't be for another 4 seasons.
You're kidding, right?
Nope.
Regardless, the intruder turns out to be Drew, who wants to know the location of Commander Kruger.
After finding out the big boss man won't be back till morning, he turns to leave, but Jack won't let him off that easy.
Sky mentioned you were missing in action. Curious. Where were you?
I don't remember.
A whole year and you can't remember?
When they found me, I had amnesia.
Amnesia. How convenient.
Not as convenient as you'd think.
What?
Never mind, let's move on.
Fine. Jack rightfully orders Sky to escort Drew back to his quarters, since any missing in action agent should be reevaluated before regaining their previous level of clearance.
Are you speaking from experience?
I'm speaking from common sense.
Anywho, Sky takes Drew back to his quarters, asking him about Xantor, the criminal he was supposedly chasing, since records show that he's still imprisoned on the Neptune province.
Think about it, Sky. I'm SPD. I'm on a top secret mission.
No self-respecting agent would ever admit to a top-secret mission.
Are you speaking from experience?
I'm speaking from an understanding of the words top secret. Of course, as soon as he's alone, Drew starts laughing maniacally and transforms into a monster. How subtle.
This next scene fascinates me.
So in this dream, right, I'm running away from this horrible alien, and I can't move. My feet are like stuck to the ground. And then the monster tears off its outer skin, and it's me inside. What do you think?
Is this dream supposed to be some sort of allegory for future plot and character developments?
What? Oh, no. I just love watching Z steal Sid's Jello cup and seeing the confused look on her face. You see, we discover 4 years later, in that same season with the Shadow Puppets, that red Jello is actually a tremendous sign of respect. So while it might seem like Z is simply grabbing the yellow Jello because she prefers the flavor that corresponds to her Ranger color, she is simultaneously granting Sid a serious token of respect, demonstrating considerable growth in the relationship between the two characters. Also, those other cadets in the background are totally watching Ninja Storm Motocross.
Words fail me. Jack attempts to smooth things over with Sky, who, once again, makes the assertion that he fails to understand friendship. But the scene is thankfully cut short by an attack on the engine room. Why does a building have an engine room?
Oh, because it turns into a giant robot, but not for a few more episodes.
Of course. That makes perfect sense. They morph and go into combat against Drew's monster form. Why are they using pistols as melee weapons?
To prevent damage to sensitive machinery?
Ah, yes. Because that seems to be working so well. Once Drew escapes, Jack immediately leaves to check on his quarters.
Drew lied to us. To you. He's a monster.
For some reason, I feel like this is not an unusual occurrence.
Anywho, the big blue dog is back in town.
Ah, right. That was the reason.
And is concerned about the recent security breach. But shortly after mocking Cadet Tate's last name.
Cadet Blake, this is a very serious violation. We'll deal with this later. Lucky for you, there's no apparent harm done.
Worst security detail ever.
Sky spots the assassin and gives chase, catching up to him in the lobby, where they attempt to disorient each other with constantly switching rotating camera angles.
Long story short, the monster is Drew's true Tangarian form, since geometric pimples apparently didn't make him alien enough. He became a mercenary after meeting a character named Broodwing, who taught him that money is more valuable than ideals. Sky tries to help him, he pulls a laser out of his armpit, breaks Sky's bracelet. It's all very sad.
The rest of the day is spent in waiting and recovery, as Kat tends to Doggy's injuries. Although the blast would have ended a human life, this old dog is tough, much to the relief of the Rangers and to the frustration of Broodwing and Drew. Later that night, Bridge manages to locate the alien assassin, and although Sky wants to bring him in personally, Jack tells him that he can't just break regulations.
Bureaucracy.
Are you speaking from experience?
You're not letting this go, are you?
Letting what go?
Jack graciously allows Sky a 10-minute head start, and he leaves to find Drew in an abandoned theater.
The two former friends decide to settle things with an old-fashioned duel, drawing their weapons and firing the moment the projector runs out of film.
And, despite the pointless spinning, damaged wrist, and the light shining in his eyes, the Blue Ranger wins because... of course he does.
But Drew refuses to take things lying down, and uses a device to grow to giant size, causing his Tangarian coil to break loose as well, and forcing the rest of the newly arrived Rangers to summon the Delta Squad Megazord.
After a brief battle, they defeat the monster with their blaster, which somehow reverts him back into his smaller, humanoid form, instead of, well, many smaller, less humanoid-shaped forms. Despite this, I will admit that the arrest by Sunrise is rather picturesque.
Does that mean you actually did like part of this episode?
Don't push it.
Fair enough. We check in briefly with Grum, who appears to be having some sort of schizophrenic chat with himself, although we'll later find out that he's actually assuring victory to a character that we won't meet for another 26 episodes.
I'm sure this was still entirely necessary. Finally, we reach the end, with Sky using Jack's toothbrush to clean the front of the building to prove that he's not above the rules, and teach him the true meaning of friendship. Or something.
And that's the end of our episode. So, what did we think of it? Well, Guy, why don't you start?
Because I don't care.
Oh, come on, give it a shot.
Fine. Anything to get this over with. The story is not a new one, and they thankfully recognize that enough not to try to make it a mystery. Instead, exploring the themes of friendship, loyalty, responsibility, and what happens when these things collide. The assassination attempt did an effective job of both raising the stakes and drawing a clear line in the sand, as well as establishing the emotional impact for the characters. Although some characters were underused and were supposedly ignoring previously established traits, this was acceptable since it kept the focus on the three main leads of the story. In terms of execution, the direction was clear and deliberate, definitely trying to evoke feelings of unease with a taste of noir, although staging did occasionally feel forced with the overindulgence in V-formations and orbital shots. The production design overall evokes a sense of high quality, complemented well by charismatic performers, and both these sides are exemplified in how well a giant blue dog comes across as an authority figure. Even the color choices of blue evening shades serve well to highlight who is at the center of the story, while the contrasting Red Ranger is presented as trying to force his way into Blue Ranger's isolated world. Of course, since this is an adaptation, it is difficult to tell how many of these points are original and how much is a result of the source material, since much of the dialogue seems decidedly American in tone, which is the sign of a good adaptation. There. Is that good enough for you?
Well, I was going to bring up the lack of Kalish explosions in this one, but yeah, pretty much hit the nail right on the head there. Overall, this episode is very representative of a lot of the things that SPD got right. And although it also represents some of the more controversial aspects, like being a very close adaptation of its Sentai counterpart and showing inconsistent character development in the wider scheme of things, these flaws are excusable because it is a strong, self-contained story that is told well. So, wait, why did you seem so frustrated with it then?
I'm just not a fan of attempts at procedural drama.
It's a little too close to home?
Yes, my mother was a procedural drama. She made me shoot our big blue dog after I got my first pimple, and she became convinced that I would turn into a monster. From space. In the future.
Really?
You think I haven't read Hamlet?
Hamlet?
Hamlet. Act 2, Scene 2, last line. The play's the thing, wherein I'll catch the conscience of the king. The next time you want to interrogate me about my past, at least have the decency to ask me directly. That way, we can just skip to the part where I tell you it's none of your business.
Hi guys. How's the episode coming?
We're done here. I have work to get to.
What was that all about?
Oh, he had a job, thing that I guess he forgot about.
Oh, so I guess you guys are all done here.
Not exactly. We still got one last little bit to do.
Anything I can help with?
Yeah, sure.
Cool.
Okay, so do you remember how I signed off after that episode I showed you before?
Yeah.
Yeah, with the little salute and...
Okay, I got this.
Yeah, okay. So until then, farewell, Ranger fans, and let the power protect you.